Well, this story is absolute bonkers. I don't know who the Dr. Evils that come up with this kind of stuff. So experiments to dim the sun are to be given a green light by the UK government. Here's the headlines from the Manchester Evening News. Yes, scientists are planning on dimming the sun in a bid to curb global warming. The UK government is set to announce funding of up to £50 million of funding for the sun dimming experiments in the coming weeks, as the Telegraph reports. They say it's all about limiting the rising temperatures. Okay. Dane Wigington, founder of geoengineeringwatch.org and the great man behind The Dimming, which is a great documentary film about this exact subject. So who better than to talk about all of this? So the way that the Telegraph is reporting this, the way the UK is ready to move on this, Dane, it sounds like this has never happened before and they're just going to try it for the first time. Do you call BS on that?
I do. That's exactly how they want it to sound, Clayton, so that they can pretend that they might do this someday when in fact these operations have been fully deployed since immediately after World War II. So they continue this grand facade, not just the UK, but also in the US, with what the US EPA head posted last week, that he's going to investigate the Make Sunsets group, as we discussed off air, two clowns from Silicon Valley that launched a few balloons. So they continue this grand facade, governments in both countries pretending this hasn't been ongoing for decades already, with catastrophic results manifesting worse by the day.
So what they're saying is it's all about global warming. So they're really worried about rising temperatures on the Earth, which we've fully debunked here on this show, that even if the Earth has risen a little bit, it's compared to what? Compared to what in history? We're going through these natural cooling and warming periods. And so they're going to protect England? If they do this, it would only be them that would be protected by this madness?
You can't just geoengineer over your own country, Clayton. You're correct about that. Bottom line is you affect the entire planet, and they know this. So we have documents at geoengineeringwatch.org, government documents, former presidential documents, Senate documents. In fact, one is 800 pages long, former U.S. Senate document from 1978, describing the scope and scale of these operations even then, and the intergovernmental cooperation even then, and even between, quote, otherwise adversarial nations, China, Russia, U.S. Historical fact of record. Soviet climate engineering scientists were touring U.S. climate engineering facilities during the height of the Cold War in the 60s, and our scientists touring theirs. Again, they continue this grand facade. In regard to the state of the climate, what we would encourage people to do from all sides of the fence is to simply follow this inarguable trajectory. How can we have any reasonable conversation about the climate, any legitimate conversation about the climate, without first and foremost addressing the climate engineering elephant in the equation? So from all sides of the fence, we should agree on that. And the whole environmental community, the AOCs, the Al Gores, their denial of what's taking place in our skies is criminal hypocrisy. You can't have any claim to have any concern about the environment from any perspective without addressing this first. This is the single most destructive human activity ever deployed by our species.
And so what chemicals are we talking about here that they would be using in the sky to try to dim the sun? And how devastating would it be to human beings, to the soil, to plant life, to animal life?
If I could change the context to is and has been.
Is and has been. I should have said that, yes. Yeah, for decades, they've been doing this, is currently. And so really no difference than what they've already been doing.
Yes, they're simply trying to keep the facade going that they might do this someday. So we know, we're not speculating, theorizing, or hypothesizing. We know what they're dispersing from hundreds of lab tests all over the world. We took a National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration flying lab to altitude, top scientists in it, all in the film The Dimming. So we know we have aluminum, nanoparticles, and by the way, the smaller the particle, the more lethal they are to everything, the entire web of life. And none of the air quality testing, none of it identifies this mountain of toxic materials, Clayton, by design. The whole system is designed not to show this because they test for 10 microns generally, occasionally 2.5 microns. Nanoparticles are inconceivably smaller. They go completely under the radar by design. Aluminum, barium, strontium, manganese, polymer fibers, surfactants, graphene. Clayton, have you ever seen, after a rain event, foaming runoff down gutters?
Yes.
Okay, those are surfactants, and that can be extreme on occasion. In fact, we have massive sea foaming events, which is the dispersion of these materials over our oceans. And again, we have a whole so-called science community pretending that this is some natural phenomenon, just like they're pretending the weather and temperature whiplash. Clayton, have you seen the radical degree to which temperatures are swinging back and forth, up and down, 50 and 60 degrees in a day? Have you seen that?
Oh, I've not only seen it, I've felt it. Or one day you're wearing shorts and suddenly the next day it's snowing, which is exactly what happened here last week.
Brand new science studies out this week from nature.com citing these radical swings and stating they just don't know why this is happening. And this is where the true insanity of our species and the whole structure of our system in academia becomes apparent, when the so-called scientists can't seem to see the elephant in the sky. And these radical swings are from patented processes of chemical ice nucleation for weather modification. These are endothermic, aka energy absorbing materials. Again, patented processes dispersed into cloud moisture, creates a cold, dense layer of air that descends to the surface, can be sometimes only a few hundred feet thick. And that's why you have also, Clayton, have you seen all the ice storms we have now and the constant massive hail? Constant. Have you noted that?
I think we talked a little bit about that. And I know I experienced this massive hailstorm with this, huge. I had to get my new truck into some sort of protective area so that I wouldn't be destroyed after I just bought the darn thing. And they were huge.
Yes, it's now become the norm. Insurance companies are canceling everywhere for hail specifically. Again, that's chemical ice nucleating operations. That's part of climate engineering. I mean, the scope and scale of these programs, the degree to which they're derailing the entire hydrological cycle, is inconceivable. And about global dimming, the stated purpose in the report you cited, that figure, based on various science studies, can range anywhere between 20 and 30% already today. What's that mean? Doesn't mean a 20 to 30% drop in visible light. It's a drop in direct sunlight. And that is the expressed purpose of these programs: solar radiation management, stratospheric aerosol injection, cloud albedo enhancement. So that's today, right now. And that's what brought me into this, Clayton, was my home, off-grid home, which was on the cover of Home Power Magazine, world's largest renewable energy magazine. My loss of solar power was 60, 70, 80%. I knew that couldn't be just, quote, condensation, certainly not just jet exhaust. And by the way, that's a narrative that's being propagated by some circles now that is incredibly alarming to us. We're so far past that point. This is not jet exhaust in our skies. It's a sprayed particulate dispersion. We have up-close film footage of these aircraft at altitude, nozzles visible, turning dispersions on and off. So there's a concerted effort right now to try to muddy the water, still claiming this is, quote, jet exhaust, and it covers our entire horizon. And we extrapolated, Clayton, how much material is being dispersed based on hundreds of lab tests in Minnesota, working with the University of Minnesota. And it appears globally, based on the research we did in Minnesota and extrapolating that globally on an annual basis, somewhere in the range of 40 to 60 million tons of highly toxic nanoparticles are being sprayed into our skies annually, which is making every single function of the planet's life support systems worse, not better. It's damaging already damaged systems. This is a fast track to planetary omnicide, Clayton, if they allow these programs to continue.
It's absolutely devastating. I mean, you think, well, England doesn't even have enough sunlight as it is. You want to dim more of it? How much more damage can you already do? It's disgusting. We talk about the aluminum piece here. Philip, our esteemed technical director here and producer, he has a background in molecular biology. We were talking after your appearance on the show a few weeks ago about aluminum, and I didn't even know it. It was after our show. We were just chatting here about, you continue to always blow us away. But after the show, we were talking about how this aluminum. Philip, can you explain again what we're talking about here? So you think, it's fine on its own if it's just there in the soil, but go explain that.
So aluminum, like just metallic aluminum, is it doesn't really do a whole lot to the environment other than just be there. But once your soil acidity hits about 5.5 pH, it becomes soluble. Then plants take it up, and then you've got you've got soluble aluminum, which is just devastating to plant life and then anything that eats it. So then you've basically like taken a metal and turned it environmentally toxic. And 5.5 pH is not very acidic. It doesn't take a whole lot of acidity in the soil to make it soluble.
Everything Philip just stated is exactly on target, exactly correct. So we know that aluminum does not exist in free form naturally in the environment, always bonded to other elements. It's highly reactive. If it's in free form and it's in our precipitation, that's means it's been mined and refined and dispersed, period. Bioavailable aluminum, highly toxic to all life forms, period, no exceptions. In regard to the pH, and that's completely correct as well, 5.5 is when it becomes reactive again and bioavailable. Precipitation now is somewhere in the range, if it's untainted, of 5, 6. We're walking a razor's edge here from precipitation that is just acidic enough to start freeing up this metal that's being dispersed in our skies. And now it's already in bioavailable form. And we have peer-reviewed study to prove that this bioavailable aluminum in our rain is killing root systems. Clayton and Philip, have you seen how many trees tip over now every time the wind blows? Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The root systems are dying back, just like their crowns are dying back. This bioavailable toxic metal in the rain is killing soil microbiome, which is killing root systems. And there are more life forms below the surface of the soil than above. People don't realize that. You can't sterilize the soil and expect to grow food for very long. And we have other ramifications as well that are ongoing and worsening by the day. Climate engineering operations are destroying the ozone layer. It's not hairspray cans. CFCs are a problem, but it's an ant compared to an elephant when we look at climate engineering operations. So climate engineering and the oxidative particles they're dispersing in the atmosphere, along with the frequency transmissions used to manipulate them, is destroying the ozone layer. No, it's not getting better. Again, that's more smoke and mirrors. Even though the sun feels incredibly intense on your skin, on surfaces, we have more car deaths every year because that thermal energy penetration is heating cars far faster than people have been used to it. So the signs are everywhere. It's burning the bark off of trees. The cambium layers are being burnt off trees from tip to trunk. And they're telling us it's better. So again, so many people will ignore their senses, their eyesight. They can see what's happening in the skies. If someone will just tell them, don't worry, everything's fine, go to sleep. The ramifications from what's happening in our skies can't be overstated. And the amount of materials we're breathing with every breath we take, again, how is this not an immediate fight for life, Clayton?
You're right. Well, I think it's absolutely intentional. To me, it's the intentional population control, intentional destruction of our planet that these globalists are doing to us. I don't see it. I can't see it any other way right now. I really can't. And as Natalie, who's upstairs feeling awful and sick, she texted, she said, imagine you got solar panels because the government told you to, and then they do this to you, right? Then they block out your energy. They tell you to get this stuff and then they block it out.
Natalie's point is so on target. It's so completely on target. So for all of these green communities, again, the AOCs, the Al Gores, how ludicrous is it to deploy light scattering particles into our sky, which is rendering commercial solar installations, and I've worked on them. I've worked on some of the first ones in the country for Bechtel Power and other firms when I was in that industry. So we're blocking direct sunlight. Again, I lose on some days 70, 80% of my solar PV uptake from the loss of direct sunlight. Again, I want to stress that. People think, well, it wasn't 70 or 80% darker. No, I'm not saying that. It's not visible light. It's direct sunlight, without which solar panels don't work. So we know some commercial solar facilities are producing half their design output because of what they're putting in the sky. But it's not just solar. Climate engineering operations and the aerosols they deploy are also radically diminishing the other two primary forms of alternative energy, hydro and wind. Because you're affecting convection with these light scattering particles that cover the sky from horizon to horizon, now what we see is all or nothing wind scenarios. It either blows far harder than it should or has historically, or not at all. In the case of a wind turbine, if the wind speed is doubled, Clayton, the power output is zero because you have to shut that turbine down to keep it from blowing apart. If you cut that wind speed in half, the power output is 1/8 of its design output rating because that's not optimal speed for the turbine. So again, 1/8 of the power or nothing, and that's what we face there. And hydro, like in the Southwest, where they're literally cutting off the precipitation. And Clayton, I fully agree with you. You're completely correct. Is this a targeting? in many ways. Yes, that's absolutely what it is. The systematic impact of these operations, which we can see on satellite over agricultural regions, for example, there's no question this is a systematic targeting, flash freeze, flash flood, flash drought. So in the case of the droughts cutting off precipitation to dams like Hoover Dam and Page Canyon Dam, the hydropower is soon to be zero because there's no water. So all three forms of alternative energy radically diminished by climate engineering. Natalie's completely correct.
It's unbelievable. I mean, we had I think we had like 40 or 45 solar panels powering our older house. And I would look at the app and watch it and monitor it, as it was going. And as soon as clouds would come over, I could instantly see it drop. I mean, it would drop down significantly. So people think, oh, the ambient solar light. No. It's direct sunlight. So if there's any clouds, boom, it just plummets. It's unbelievable to watch.
You're completely correct. Yeah, they only function off direct sunlight. And again, back to what we're breathing in every breath we take, we have recent peer-reviewed study that cited that we may be inhaling, depending on the circumstances and location, as many as 20 million nanoparticles in a single breath. That's inconceivable. It sounds impossible, and most people might not understand how that could be. But you have to consider that you can fit as many as 100,000 nanoparticles across the width of a single human hair. These particles are the most lethal of all, and they're going completely unreported. I've been in high-level EPA meetings at the California State Capitol, arranged by congressional reps, top EPA officials there, told to my face the entire system is rigged. They're told to test for combustion particulates only, PM10 only. The rest of the samples go out the window. So again, the system has been designed not to show this incredibly lethal, ongoing dispersion of materials into our atmosphere that's virtually annihilating all forms of the planet's life support systems, our food, our water. And again, it's building up in us. I want to stress that. These are bioavailable and bioaccumulative, so they're highly inflammatory in our systems. And we have peer-reviewed study to prove, even in the case of the nanoparticles of plastic. Have you seen recent studies, Clayton, that are reporting the microplastics building up in our systems?
Yeah, it's incredibly disturbing. They're finding it in male reproductive organs. I mean, they're finding it everywhere.
Yes, and everywhere from hearts, livers, brains, placentas, and polymer nanofibers are a primary element named in climate engineering patents. Yes, we have decomposing plastic around the world. We're not denying that. But when we have particles that appear to be manufactured, and we will soon post an exchange between myself and a microbiologist from Rensselaer Polytechnic in New York, identifying some of the samples that we took from altitude as being manufactured particles, period. This is not just decomposition. Again, the proof is indisputable at this point. We're in a fight for life right here, right now.
Dane, I'll ask you this. I got some documents that were sent to me from an anonymous source, and these were a list of patents. I'm going through them now, but that show climate engineering patents going back decades, and there's specific patents for specifically manipulating the weather. How many patents overall do you think the United States Patent Office has that are specifically towards geoengineering?
In that general field, well over 200. They go back well over a century. The listeners can search geoengineeringwatch.org extensive list of patents. They can find those. And at the very beginning of the Deming documentary, they can see the actual diagrams of the dispersion systems for heavy aircraft carriers, just like commercial aircraft. It's all there at the very beginning of the Deming. So again, the notion that this is something they might do someday, I challenge people to use your sense of reason and logic and look up. Our skies look like something from a science fiction movie most of the time now. And this is another major factor, Clayton, where the damage to the planet needs to be considered in this equation, that these operations are diminishing the planet's ability to produce natural cloud cover. And that problem should be obvious. That's part of how the planet cools itself. And climate engineering is thwarting that process. Again, we're back to the pharmaceutical approach. And this is a weapon, by the way. Again, it's a covert weapon of the controllers because they can and are bringing populations to their knees without those populations ever even knowing they're under assault. But if we diminish or irreparably damaged the planet's natural cloud-making processes, we're done. It's that simple. So again, the ramifications from these programs, virtually in every single foundational factor of what allows life to exist on this planet, this is a real and immediate threat of planetary omnicide.
Dane Wigington, we really appreciate it as always. Geoengineeringwatch.org. Go there, read the documents, look at it. It's all right there. They're trying to tell us that this is new. They're going to roll this out in England in a few weeks. It's never been done before, right? Just look up in the skies. It's happening all around us and killing us right now. Dane, thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much for your work in this and educating all of us about this. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Clayton. My thanks to you and Natalie and your voice in this equation. It's so important to have figures like yourself sounding the alarm on this issue. So my deepest gratitude to you and Redacted.
Well, my deepest gratitude for you for being able to join us here and really shine a light on these stories, because more people need to hear it, and the Trump administration needs to hear it, and these global leaders need to hear it if they're unaware of it. So thank you for your work, Dan. We appreciate it.
Team effort.